So I'm going to ask you a broad net question to kind of start off here. What's the difference between the defense this year and the defense from last year?
I think that you see a greater understanding of the entire scheme. Obviously, you would expect that to be the case. Steve Spagnuolo in year one is still trying to install things, trying to get Tyrann Mathieu, Anthony Hitchens on the same page. You started to see that kind of come into play towards the end of last year. They were able to hit the ground running. Anthony Hitchens is playing the best football of his career right now,
Mhm.
and it's not particularly close. Tyrann Mathieu had a little bit of struggles to really impact the game early, but since L'Jarius Sneed came back, that's moved him back to this kind of chess piece role that we've seen him really thrive in the past couple of years. So I think you just see an overall understanding of what everybody needs to do from defensive line all the way back to the secondary. It makes it a lot easier for Spagnolo to call a more assorted range of coverage
Mhm.
calls, blitzes, things like that. So I think you're just seeing a lot more diversity and a lot more cohesiveness on the team. And you definitely see that that's the case when backups are having to come in, especially the backup Mike
Yeah.
linebacker. You start to see some of those situations fall apart a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, and to build off of that, I think that this year, like, people are not criticizing the defense a ton, but they think that it's not as good as last year. There isn't that magical point. Like last year at week 11, everything came together and everyone said, "Oh, the
Mhm.
defense is great." This year they've been pretty much the same all year. Like there hasn't been a ton of variance there, so it's not like they're giving up 35 points a game. It's not like they're getting gashed quite as much on the ground. I mean, I think they're doing a lot better than most people think they are.
Yeah, and especially out of the base and the nickel
Yep.
defenses. You've
Mhm.
seen them be significantly better there. It's
Mhm.
allowed them to build up some of these multi-score leads, and then Spagnolo puts in the dime.
Yep.
And it gets a little soft. It's
Mhm.
definitely saw a softer dime than it was last year when they were able to kind of close out some of those games. But when games are close, the Chiefs defense has been pretty good outside of the two Raiders games, has been pretty good at keeping the offense out of the end zone.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And that was something that I was going to bring up too, because we like to talk about a lot that the Chiefs defense had a turning point week 11 last year. And then it seemed like this year we were looking for that turning point, and it seems like we were looking too hard for it. Do you think that's something that we kind of fell into as we were looking too hard for a turning point?
A little bit, and I think people were kind of hoping that this defense was gonna come out and maybe hold every team to under 20 points every single game, regardless
Mhm.
of the game script. It's really hard to play defense in the NFL, guys, but
Mhm.
I do think that they have been fairly consistent. I do think that the base and nickel run defenses has really gotten better to the point that teams don't really like to run on it right now. Like they don't
Mhm.
try. Chiefs have played a couple run heavy teams there with their starting defense towards the end of the year, and those teams bailed on it early
Yeah.
because they just couldn't get anything going particularly well. I mean, outside of Denver, but they really have locked down some teams a little bit more. That was kind of a fatal flaw to keep Mahomes on the sideline. They haven't been able to do that. Teams really haven't been able to do that. And obviously, this team's built around the offense. So a defense that can prevent that from happening is realistically the key of what you need there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like not necessarily a big turning point, but a mini turning point was when L'Jarius Sneed came back from injury because he's a guy who people didn't expect to see a ton of from the beginning of the season. He started the first game of the year, then he played and got hurt. He came back. They threw him inside to the nickel corner and said, "Here you go. Good luck, kid." And he's been like fantastic in every role they've asked him to do. So that has opened up the field. Me and Craig talked about this in DMs one day about how Matthew is now that chess piece.
Yeah.
Like he's Matthew again, where he can do whatever he wants. And Dan, like guys, we got to quit hating on Dirty Dan. He is being asked to do a lot of stuff. For what he usually is asked to do, he does what he's supposed to do. He's a guy where like you see what he's good at and that's it. Like you have to take it at
Mhm.
face value and accept he's limited, but he's a smart player. And I think that's just really the Chiefs defense. They have a bunch of guys who aren't fantastic, but they know what they're supposed to do and they do it well. Bashad Breeland's another one.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to see him clamp opposing wide receivers and be a lockdown corner, but he's probably a top 30 corner in the league or so. And that's pretty valuable in today's NFL.
Well, and
Yeah.
especially in a Spagnuolo scheme that does so
Yep.
much. Like
Hmm.
you've got to have guys that can do the responsibility at a high level. Now, yes, Dan Sorensen in man-to-man coverage against a great tight end, that's not going to go great. Like,
Yeah.
we all know that. Steve Spagnuolo
Mhm.
knows that as well. The times that you see that occur are when he's sending blitzes that are supposed to get home quickly.
Right.
You're limiting those opportunities. Same with Anthony Hitchens in coverage. Like, we all know Anthony Hitchens is not a great coverage defender, but everything else that he brings, everything that he brings to the table helps this scheme work in a big way. L'Jarius Sneed has been massive for
Yeah.
that. Since he's come back and he's been able to kick in, he's playing a little linebacker next to Damian Wilson
Yeah.
and Anthony Hitchens in the nickel, and he's in the run fit. Like,
Yeah.
it's a big deal. Like, a willing participant in the run game there, that's helped a ton, because to have a
Mhm.
guy that can play two ways there, drop to safety, drop, kick out and boundary, you can just trust that he's going to do his job. It helps to have smart players, even if they're not the most athletically gifted, although obviously L'Jarius Sneed is.